12-team playoff. Is it good for college football? Next on the Voice of College Football. It looks like we're going to have a 12-team playoff in the next few seasons, as announced last week by the College Football Playoff Committee. The details have yet to be worked out, but the proposal that they're looking at would be 12 teams. So therefore, we're either going to stay with the 4-team format that we have right now, and then based on the 63 proposals that they've already sorted through, they are down to one proposal, and it's 12 teams. And the details, the minor details, need to be worked out, but the framework's in place. Let's run it down. We've got 6 of the highest-ranked conference champions. Those teams will automatically qualify for the playoff. The rankings by the College Football Playoff Selection Committee. All right. That's not necessarily the Power 5 plus 1, but if you go year to year through what's happened in the past, it does turn out to be, in reality, the Power 5 plus the best group of 5 champion. Okay, 6 champions automatically in. Okay, 6 wild cards make up the rest of the field. Those are the highest ranked teams according to the selection committee, 12 teams. All right, the top 4 teams that are conference champions receive the buys. Okay, that's the framework. There it is. That's about all you need to know. All right, here's the good. The good is that all the Power 5 conference champions have a seat at the table. That was the fallacy with the initial college football playoff that started in 2014. 4 spots, 5 conferences. All right. So we include all the conference champions. They don't play each other enough. The conferences don't, for us to decide who's better than whom. Okay, so we get all the conference champions in. All right, point number 2, that's a good point for this model, is that there's been a decision made about the group of 5. At least one group of 5 team that's a champion will be in this field. All I have stated for months and months and months and years is that there had to be a decision made about the group of 5. In the past, in this playoff format, the group of 5 is considered, which in actuality they weren't strongly considered, legitimately considered, but they were considered enough to be in the rankings, so they were patronized. I wanted a decision made as to they are excluded, go play your own playoff, or you're formally included with a seat at the table. So the group of 5 has at least one. Its top champion at least will play in this 12-team field. Okay. What else is good about this format is that it rewards conference champions, and therefore conference championship games mean a lot. Because if a team's number 1 ranked in the country and undefeated and play for a conference championship and lose, they can't just mail it in. As has been the concern of many, if the field would be expanded, that the conference championship games would matter so the top teams in the nation could lose, still retain their spots, and move on to the playoff. Well, they're going to move on to the playoff, but they're going to have to play the first game. Only conference champions get buys. That makes total sense. The elite, or let's say the exceptional, are still just the teams that are going to make the playoff. I know a lot of people don't like 8 teams, 12 teams. They think it waters down the field. All you have to do is go through the college football playoff era, look at the field of 12 teams as it would have concluded in each one of those seasons, and your worst teams that make the playoff are typically either 10-2 or 9-3. That's the dividing line, either 10-2 or 9-3 non-conference champions. Okay. With 12 out of 130 making it, that's still only 9%. Only 9% of college football makes the playoffs. That is still far less than any other sport you can bring up on either the collegiate or the professional level. It's still the cream of the crop. It actually makes the regular season more meaningful. So this is a discussion that we have all the time. And the knock against an expanded playoff is that the regular season games will be less meaningful because there will be teams, theoretically, that will wrap up a playoff spot and not need to win a game near the end of the season. Well, they took care of that with the conference championship games. And then even late season games, yes, is it possible that a highly, highly ranked team will go into its last game, a rivalry game, and be able to lose that game and still maintain a top 4 position with a conference championship game win. Therefore, they don't need to win that game. That is going to be so rare. It's basically almost never going to happen, number one. Believe me, it's almost never going to happen, number one. Number two, we're talking about 1 or 2 games per year, if that, versus all the games that are now meaningful. So if all you care about is the national championship, and if that's all that matters is everybody should be gunning for a national championship, we have now made dozens and dozens and dozens of games in November meaningful that previously were just good matchups, just good games. Just, TCU's playing Texas, and they're both 8-2. LSU's playing Auburn, they're both 8-2. Those in the past were good games. Let's watch it. Couple top 15 teams. Wisconsin's playing Iowa. Decent game, but it's not going to matter in the national championship race. Now it does. For the 1 or 2 possible games, and I am predicting that that's not going to be the case, but the 1 or 2 possible games each season, which will be rendered meaningless because those teams will already have wrapped up a playoff spot at the end of the season, the regular season, there are going to be dozens and dozens and dozens more games that are suddenly meaningful toward national championship consideration. Okay, so those are all the positives. There's a lot I like about this system. The one obvious bad is we are still ranking teams with a committee. We are still having people select the best teams. That doesn't work. That's idiotic. Where does this ever work? Anywhere. Having people select. We are giving all authority in college football to 13 people. Does that make any sense at all? At least if you had like 65 or 70 people like you did with the AP or the UPI poll back in the day, then you've got a larger pool of people ranking these teams. But we've handed college football to 13 people and said, you decide who the best teams are. They're not capable of doing that. Nobody's capable of doing that. An objective system will work. Look at the live stream that we did a few months ago. The link is in the description section below. I outlined my formula. I won't explain it right here, but my formula is objective. It begins with a scheduling fix because all of this could work much better with scheduling equity. But in addition to that, you can implement an objective system where playoff teams aren't selected, but exactly like the NFL, Major League Baseball, the professional sports, the system determines. The people don't determine the playoffs. That's idiotic. It's ridiculous. It's stupid because they've proven incapable. Not because they're incapable or incompetent, but it's an impossible process. We will go through in the next few days each college football playoff season, and we will clearly show all of you, as we discuss this, that it's impossible to determine as humans the difference between 6, 9, and 3 teams, where only 2 of them can make the playoff. You need an objective system. All right, so there's the first fallacy. And the second one is, of course, no buys. This is the most ridiculous thing about this. This is pathetic. It is beyond pathetic. I will scream it. I will yell it. I will rant about it. If this gets implemented, I will not be able to say enough about it, and I will rant and rave about it, and I will prove each and every college football playoff season why the system's broke. It's just going to be broke in a different way. Now we're going to have more teams, and we're going to have at least all the conferences represented and a group of 5 formally represented, and we're going to have all the best teams in the country there to play in the playoff, but some of them are going to have an inordinate advantage that doesn't make any sense. Okay, buys work in the NFL. This is why. Teams play in the same conference. They play in divisions. Their schedules are almost exactly alike. If the Kansas City Chiefs go 13-3 and win a division, and the Pittsburgh Steelers go 11-5 and win a division, and the Chiefs are awarded and earned a bye, it's because they went 13-3 against their schedule, and the Pittsburgh Steelers went 11-5. Okay, those schedules are almost identical. They play in the same conference. They play in the NFL. The teams are almost identical. The caliber of play is so close. And two teams in the same conference in the NFL play 10, 11, 12 games exactly the same. And then the other 4, 5, 6 games are against different opponents, but those opponents are so close that the strength of those two schedules is so razor thin that you can make a distinction between a 13-3 team and an 11-5 team to say, okay, the 13-3 has earned a bye over the 11-5 team. We've got a situation in college football where that's impossible. These teams don't play. These teams don't even play teams that play the other teams. Okay, so how do we determine buys? People will say, I understand that many of you are going to say in the comment section or in the next call-in show, well, you just take the best teams. We don't know who the best teams are. You can go to any season, and it is extremely difficult to figure out who are the 4 best teams that earned a bye. It's just plain to see. You can go through and why the morons that put this system together, they did a lot of good things. I just went through the outline of the good points, but they are moronic. They're idiots. Basically, I'll just say it clearly because buys don't work. They don't work in college football. Idiots. They are complete morons for thinking that they can objectively select 4 teams that clearly earned it. All they had to do is go through, and I'm sure they did, each season, 2020 on back. Who are the 4 teams that are going to get the buys in those seasons? There might be 1 out of 10 years where you could clearly say, okay, those 4 teams separated themselves and earned those buys. I'm saying that it never happens, but maybe once out of 10 years, maybe. It's utterly foolish and stupid and idiotic to award buys. Okay, so this is the completely unfair advantage given to the teams that don't win the buys. They're given the buys. Again, I've been ranting about this playoff for 7 years, that it's an invitational, not a playoff. Well, this is the same thing. It's an invitational. We've just expanded it, so we got all the best teams in there. So I'm good with that. We got all the best teams in there. So even the playoff committee is not going to be able to screw that up. The best teams are going to be there. Even if they get 11 and 12 wrong, not an issue. Okay. The issues with the buys. Okay. Take this scenario. You tell me if this is fair. Okay. We've got Ohio State. They're given a bye as the 4 seed. Let's say Oklahoma and Oregon will be, the winner of that game will be Ohio State's second round game. So Ohio State gets the bye. Oklahoma and Oregon, they are playing the 5-12 game, let's say, because Oklahoma had the same record as Ohio State and did everything else that Ohio State did, but they just happened to be, the playoff committee said, Ohio State 4, Oklahoma 5. They both went 13-1. They did all the same things, but we just had to put one at 4 and one at 5. Not the committee's fault. That's the situation that they're placed in. Oregon, let's say, was a conference champion in the Pac-12 or the second place team in the Pac-12. Anyway, they're the 12th seed. Oklahoma, Oregon. Okay. Number one, when you have a bye, you have no risk of losing. So that's the obvious advantage. When you have to play a game, you have a 50% chance of losing. So that's the obvious advantage to having a bye. So that's why when buys are not earned, they are completely unfair and don't make sense. When they're earned, okay, we'll give advantage to the team that over the course of a season objectively earned the bye. That doesn't happen in college football. So, number one, no risk of losing versus the team having a 50% chance of losing the game. Number two, the teams that have to play. In this scenario, Oklahoma and Oregon, they're going to get beat up and nicked up. They're going to have to play a tough opponent in the first round. These are good teams. They're tough teams. You're going to have to focus on your opponent, play a difficult game. Most of these games are going to be difficult, especially since we've come down off the elite and have that second and third tier playing. They're going to be tough games. Okay. You're going to get nicked up and beat up and bruised up. Okay. Point number 3 is that there is a fairly high probability. It may not be a probability over 50%, but it's a strong possibility that somebody is going to get hurt in that game that won't be able to play in the next round. So somebody for Oklahoma and Oregon, the team that wins the game, they're going to get a starter lost, an impact player, a role player, maybe 2, maybe 3. We've seen games where 3 players have been lost, maybe 2. I'd say on average more than 1 player's going to be lost by the winning team for the next game. You have a chance of losing at 50%. You're going to get beat up, and you could lose a player or 2. And point number 4 that nobody else brings up is that for 3 weeks, Ohio State, in this scenario, as the team with a bye, is going to be able to focus on Oklahoma and Oregon and can be able to prepare for both teams. They're going to have plenty of time to watch tape on and focus on both teams and be able to watch them actually play a game against each other to then really scout up to date those 2 teams. Oklahoma and Oregon, they can't worry about Ohio State. They've got to focus on their opponent that they're playing, or if they look past them, they're going to lose. So they've got to be laser focused on their game strategy, approach, everything tunnel visioned on their opponent, while the team with the bye is going to have 3 weeks to prepare and strategize for the winner of that week 1 game. Doesn't make sense. It's not fair. And again, if it was objective and an earned bye, I would not have an issue with it, but that's impossible in college football. All right, your comments down below on the 12-team playoff proposal. We're going to get further details as it comes out here in the next several weeks, but right now we've got the general framework. There are a lot of goods, there's a couple bads, and those bads really hurt the competitive balance of this playoff. Let's talk it up right here at the Voice of College Football. Please share these videos out on social media so you will keep the channel going by sharing the videos and building the audience right here at the Voice of College Football.